My fiancé and I were watching the new Squid Games season together on her laptop when a notification popped up. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. I've missed you so much." She looked at me horrified, stammering, "It's not what you think. He's just a friend going through a rough time," I said calmly. "Don't worry, mistakes happen," and went to bed. The next morning she woke up with no ring on her finger and a note saying he can have you now. Now she's blowing up my phone, sobbing, "Please come back, I chose you, not him." My name is Kieran Ashworth, and until 3 months ago, I thought I had everything figured out. I was 32, had a successful consulting business, owned a beautiful house in the suburbs of Portland, and was engaged to the woman I believed would be my wife. Serafina Caldwell was everything I thought I wanted: intelligent, ambitious, and breathtakingly beautiful, with her cascade of auburn hair and emerald eyes that seemed to hold secrets I was desperate to unlock. The notification that changed everything appeared on a Tuesday evening in March. We were curled up on my leather sectional, sharing a bowl of caramel popcorn while watching the latest season of Squid Game on her MacBook. The soft glow from the screen illuminated her face as she laughed at something I'd whispered in her ear. Then that damned message notification chimed, sliding down from the top of her screen like a guillotine blade. "Can't wait to see you tonight, baby. I've missed you so much." The sender's name was Darius Montenegro, someone I'd never heard her mention in our 2 years together. Serafina's face went ashen, her green eyes widening in what looked like genuine terror. She fumbled with the laptop, trying to dismiss the notification, but it was too late. The damage was done. "Kieran, it's not what you think," she stammered, her voice higher than usual. "He's just a friend going through a rough time. His girlfriend left him last month and he's been really struggling. I've been trying to help him through it." Her words tumbled out in a rush, each one sounding more desperate than the last. I felt something cold settle in my chest, but my voice remained steady. "Don't worry, mistakes happen," I said, reaching over to close the laptop gently. "I'm tired. I think I'll head to bed early tonight." I stood up, kissed the top of her head like I had 1,000 times before, and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Behind me, I could hear her calling my name, but I didn't turn around. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to Serafina pace downstairs, occasionally hearing her muffled voice as she made phone calls. Around midnight, she finally came to bed, sliding in beside me and whispering apologies into the darkness. I pretended to be asleep, but every fiber of my being was alert, processing what I'd seen and what it meant. The next morning, while Serafina was still sleeping, I carefully slipped the engagement ring off her finger. It was a 3-carat diamond solitaire that had cost me 6 months' salary, set in platinum and engraved with both our initials. I placed it on the nightstand next to a note I'd written on my personal letterhead: "He can have you now." Then I packed a single suitcase, grabbed my laptop and important documents, and drove to the Marriott downtown. From my hotel room, I called my best friend and business partner, Matthias Blackstone. "I need you to handle the Henderson account presentation today," I told him. "Something's come up." Matthias had known me since college and could hear the carefully controlled tension in my voice. He didn't ask questions, just assured me he'd take care of everything. Next, I called my lawyer, Cordelia Ashfield, who had handled the purchase of my house and various business contracts. "Cordelia, I need to discuss some personal matters. Can we meet this afternoon?" She agreed immediately, sensing the urgency in my voice. By noon, my phone was exploding with calls and texts from Serafina. The messages started apologetic and quickly escalated to desperate. "Kieran, please call me back. We need to talk about this. I can explain everything if you'll just listen. Please don't throw away what we have over a misunderstanding. I love you, not him. You have to believe me." I deleted each message without responding. That afternoon, I sat in Cordelia's oak-paneled office and laid out the situation. She was a sharp woman in her 50s with silver hair and penetrating blue eyes that missed nothing. "What exactly do you want to do?" she asked, leaning back in her leather chair. "I want to disappear from her life completely," I said. "The house is in my name only. I want to make sure she has no legal claim to anything. I also want to change all my passwords, bank accounts, everything. I want to make it impossible for her to reach me except through intermediaries if absolutely necessary." Cordelia nodded approvingly. "Smart man. Too many people make emotional decisions in situations like this and end up paying for it later. Let's start with a complete financial audit of your shared expenses and assets." Over the next week, I methodically untangled our lives. I discovered things that made my blood run cold. Serafina had been using my credit card for expensive dinners at restaurants I'd never been to, purchases from high-end men's clothing stores, and hotel bookings in the city when she claimed to be visiting her sister in Seattle. The pattern went back 8 months. I hired a private investigator named Augustus Pemberton, a former police detective with 30 years of experience. Within 72 hours, he provided me with a comprehensive report that confirmed my worst suspicions. Serafina had been involved with Darius Montenegro for nearly a year. They had been meeting at upscale hotels, taking weekend trips together, and according to several witnesses, acting like a couple in love. But that wasn't the most devastating part. Augustus's investigation revealed that Darius wasn't just some random man. He was a successful investment banker who made twice what I did, drove a Ferrari, and lived in a penthouse apartment downtown. This wasn't a case of emotional cheating or a momentary lapse in judgment. This was a calculated, long-term deception. The final piece of the puzzle came when Augustus showed me photos from Darius's social media accounts. There was Serafina, smiling and radiant, wearing a diamond tennis bracelet I'd never seen before. In another photo, they were at a wine tasting event that had taken place the same weekend she told me she was attending her cousin's wedding in California. I felt something inside me harden into resolve. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about justice. I spent the next 2 weeks crafting my response with the precision of a surgeon. First, I had my accountant, Beatrice Thornfield, calculate exactly how much money Serafina had spent on her affair using my resources. The total came to over $15,000 in unauthorized charges over 8 months. Then I contacted my insurance agent and had Serafina removed from all my policies, including health, life, and auto insurance. I changed the locks on my house and had a security system installed with cameras at every entrance. Next, I worked with Cordelia to draft formal notices to Serafina. The first was a demand for repayment of the $15,000 she had essentially stolen from me. The second was a cease and desist letter requiring her to stop contacting me directly and to remove any photos of us from her social media accounts. But the piece de resistance was still to come. Through my business connections, I learned that Darius Montenegro was up for a promotion to managing director at his investment firm. It was a position that required extensive background checks and interviews with existing clients. I also discovered that his firm had a strict morality clause in their employment contracts, particularly regarding relationships that could compromise their reputation. I compiled a comprehensive dossier documenting the affair, including timeline evidence, receipts for expenses, and photos from Augustus's investigation. I didn't send it to Darius's firm directly. Instead, I sent it to 3 of their biggest clients, along with a carefully worded letter expressing my concerns about entrusting my investments to someone who demonstrated such poor judgment in personal matters. Within a week, Darius's firm launched an internal investigation. Within 2 weeks, he was terminated for violating the company's ethics policies. The financial industry is smaller than people think, and word travels fast. By the end of the month, Darius was unemployed and essentially blacklisted from major investment firms in the city. Meanwhile, Serafina's attempts to contact me had become increasingly frantic. She showed up at my office building, but security turned her away based on instructions I'd given them. She sent flowers to my house, which I donated to a local nursing home. She even tried to contact my mother in Phoenix, but I'd already warned my family about the situation. The breaking point came when she enlisted her sister, Ophelia, to ambush me at my favorite coffee shop. Ophelia was younger than Serafina but had always struck me as more honest. She cornered me while I was waiting for my order, her eyes red from crying. "Kieran, please," she said, grabbing my arm. "Serafina is falling apart. She hasn't eaten in days. She keeps saying she made the biggest mistake of her life. Can't you at least talk to her?" I looked at Ophelia with what I hoped was compassion. She wasn't to blame for her sister's choices. "Ophelia, I appreciate that you love your sister, but what she did wasn't a mistake. It was a choice she made every day for almost a year. She chose to lie to me, steal from me, and betray the trust I placed in her. Those aren't mistakes. They're character flaws." "But she loves you," Ophelia protested. "She told me she was going to break things off with Darius. The message you saw was him trying to convince her not to." I almost laughed at the absurdity of it. If that were true, why didn't she just tell me that immediately? Why did she lie about him being just a friend? And why did she continue seeing him for months after that message? Ophelia's face crumpled. "What do you mean, months after?" I realized that Serafina hadn't been entirely honest with her own sister. I pulled out my phone and showed Ophelia one of the photos Augustus had taken just 2 weeks ago, showing Serafina and Darius having an intimate dinner at an expensive restaurant downtown. "Oh my," Ophelia whispered. "She told me she ended it right after you left." "Your sister is a skilled liar," I said gently. "She's been lying to me for almost a year, and apparently, she's been lying to you too. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this, but I can't help someone who won't help themselves." That evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Kieran, it's me." Serafina's voice was barely above a whisper, hoarse from crying. "Please don't hang up. I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but I need you to know the truth." "I already know the truth," I said calmly. "I've known the truth for weeks now." There was a long pause. What do you mean? I mean I know about the hotel receipts, the expensive dinners, the weekend trips, the tennis bracelet, and the wine tasting. I know about all of it, Serafina. Every lie, every deception, every moment you chose him over me while wearing my ring and living in my house. I could hear her sobbing on the other end of the line. How did you? It doesn't matter. Kieran, I was confused. I was scared about getting married, about committing to one person forever. Darius made me feel exciting and dangerous, but it wasn't real. What we have is real. What we had, I corrected. And you're right, it was real. Which is what makes what you did so much worse. You didn't just betray a casual relationship. You betrayed someone who loved you completely, who trusted you with everything, who was planning to spend his life with you. I know, she whispered. I know I messed up. But we can work through this. People get past infidelity all the time. We can go to counseling, we can. No, I said firmly. We can't. Because this isn't just about infidelity. This is about who you fundamentally are as a person. You're someone who can look me in the eye every day for 8 months while betraying me. You're someone who can use my money to finance your affair. You're someone who can lie so effortlessly that even your own sister believed you. That's not something counseling can fix. Please, she begged. I'll do anything. I'll pay you back every penny. I'll cut off all contact with Darius forever. I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back. It's too late for that, I told her. I hope you and Darius are very happy together. He won't return my calls, she said, her voice breaking. I think he's avoiding me. His phone goes straight to voicemail. I almost felt sorry for her then. Almost. That's probably because he got fired last week. Turns out investment firms don't appreciate employees with questionable moral character. He's probably dealing with some financial stress right now. The silence on the other end of the line stretched for nearly a minute. When she finally spoke, her voice was cold. You did that. You destroyed his career. I provided factual information to concerned parties, I said. They drew their own conclusions about whether someone who conducts affairs while engaged to someone else has the character necessary to manage their money. You're not the man I fell in love with, she said bitterly. The Kieran I knew was kind and forgiving. You're right, I agreed. The Kieran you knew was also naive and trusting. Consider this my graduation from that version of myself. I hung up and blocked her number. Over the following weeks, I heard through mutual friends that Serafina had been forced to move back in with her parents. Without my financial support and with her own modest salary as a marketing coordinator, she couldn't afford to live independently in the city. Darius, meanwhile, had apparently moved back to his hometown in Ohio to live with his brother while he figured out his next steps. 3 months after that fateful night watching Squid Game, I was sitting in my home office when my doorbell rang. Through the security camera, I could see a delivery truck. The driver handed me a small package addressed to Kieran Ashworth with no return address. Inside was the engagement ring I'd left on the nightstand, along with a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. Kieran, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I needed to return this and try one more time to explain. I've spent these past months thinking about what I did and why I did it. You were right about everything. I was selfish and cruel and I took advantage of your love and trust. I told myself I was just having fun, that it didn't mean anything, but I know now that every choice I made was a choice to hurt you. I've been in therapy, and my therapist helped me understand that I was sabotaging our relationship because I was scared of how much I loved you. I was terrified of being vulnerable, of putting all my happiness in one person's hands. So I created an escape route with Darius. It was cowardly and terrible, and I know saying I'm sorry doesn't undo the damage. I don't expect you to forgive me or take me back. I just wanted you to know that losing you was the worst thing that's ever happened to me. Not because of the lifestyle or the security you provided, but because I lost the best man I've ever known. Someone who loved me genuinely and completely, who would have done anything for me, who deserved so much better than what I gave him. I hope someday you'll find someone who appreciates the incredible person you are. Someone who would never take your love for granted the way I did. I'll always love you, even though I know I lost the right to say that. Serafina, P.S. I've started paying back the money I owe you. My lawyer will be in touch with yours to set up a payment plan. I read the letter twice, then placed it in the ring in my safe. I felt something, but it wasn't the pain or anger I'd expected. It was something closer to closure. That weekend, I had dinner with Matthias and his wife, Evangeline, at their home. Their daughter, 6-year-old Isadora, regaled me with stories about her ballet class while we ate Evangeline's famous lasagna. Watching their family interact, seeing the easy affection and genuine partnership between Matthias and Evangeline, I realized something important. I think I'm ready to start dating again, I announced over dessert. Evangeline nearly choked on her wine. Really? Are you sure? I'm sure, I said. What happened with Serafina taught me a lot about what I will and won't accept in a relationship. I'm not the same person I was 3 months ago. I'm stronger, more confident, and I have better boundaries. I think I'm ready to find someone who deserves the best version of me. Matthias raised his glass. To new beginnings and better choices. To new beginnings, I agreed. The next Monday, I was in my office reviewing quarterly reports when my assistant, Penelope, buzzed me. There's a Serafina Caldwell here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she says it's important. I considered having Penelope send her away, but curiosity got the better of me. Send her in. Serafina looked terrible. She'd lost weight, her usually perfect hair was pulled back in a messy ponytail, and there were dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of her usual designer clothes. But what struck me most was the change in her posture. The confident, almost arrogant way she used to carry herself had been replaced by something humbler and more uncertain. "Thank you for seeing me," she said, hovering near the door as if afraid to come closer. "You have 5 minutes," I said, not getting up from behind my desk. She took a deep breath. "I wanted to thank you." That wasn't what I'd expected. "Thank me?" "For not destroying me completely," she said. "I know you could have. You could have posted about the affair on social media, told all our friends the details, made sure I was completely humiliated and ostracized. But you didn't. You handled it privately and professionally, and I'm grateful for that." I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation, but all I saw was genuine remorse. "I didn't do it for you," I said honestly. "I did it because that's not who I am." "I know," she said. "That's what makes you a better person than me." We stood in silence for a moment. Finally, she spoke again. "I also wanted you to know that I'm getting help. Real help. I've been seeing a therapist twice a week, and I've joined a support group for people who have engaged in infidelity. I'm trying to understand why I did what I did so I never hurt anyone like that again." "That's good," I said, and I meant it. "I hope it helps." "It is helping," she said. "I'm learning that I have patterns of self-sabotage that go back to childhood. It doesn't excuse what I did, but it helps explain it." She paused. "I also want you to know that I haven't spoken to Darius since that last phone call you and I had. Whatever we had is completely over." "How is he doing?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Serafina looked surprised too. "I honestly don't know. I heard he moved back to Ohio and is working at a small regional firm. I hope he's getting help too, because what we did together wasn't healthy for either of us." I nodded. "Is there anything else?" "Just one more thing," she said, reaching into her purse and pulling out a check. "It's not much, but it's the first payment toward what I owe you. $500. I'll send the same amount every month until it's paid off." I took the check and looked at it. Her handwriting was shakier than I remembered, but the amount was correct. "You didn't have to do this in person." "Yes, I did," she said firmly. "I needed to look you in the eye and take responsibility for what I did. I needed to see that you're okay, that you're moving forward. And I needed to apologize one more time, face to face, without expecting anything in return." She turned to leave, then stopped at the door. "Kieran? For what it's worth, I really am sorry. And I really do hope you find someone who loves you the way you deserve to be loved." After she left, I sat at my desk for a long time, staring at the check. Then I picked up my phone and called Cordelia. "I need to set up a scholarship fund," I told her. "Something for young women who are working to better themselves after making serious mistakes. I want it to be anonymous, and I want the first recipient to be someone who's in therapy for relationship issues and is working to pay off debts from past poor choices." "That's very generous," Cordelia said. "Do you have someone in mind?" "I might," I said. "Let me think about it." That evening, I was at the gym when I noticed a woman struggling with the weight machine I'd been waiting to use. She was petite with short blonde hair and kind blue eyes, and she looked frustrated as she tried to adjust the settings. "Need some help?" I offered. She looked up gratefully. "That would be amazing. I'm still figuring out how all these machines work." "I'm Kieran," I said, extending my hand. "Celeste," she replied, shaking it. "Celeste Whitmore. I just joined last week." As I helped her adjust the machine and showed her the proper form, we fell into easy conversation. She was a pediatric nurse who had recently moved to Portland from Denver. She was funny and self-deprecating, with an infectious laugh that made me smile despite myself. "Would you like to grab coffee sometime?" I found myself asking as we finished our workouts. She smiled, and I noticed she had a small gap between her front teeth that was absolutely charming. "I'd like that very much." As I walked to my car that night, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this moment. 3 months ago, I'd been engaged to a woman who betrayed me in the worst possible way. I'd been naive and trusting, willing to overlook red flags because I was in love with the idea of being in love. Now I was stronger, wiser, and more discerning. I knew my worth and what I would and wouldn't accept in a relationship. I'd learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away from someone who doesn't appreciate what you're offering. The revenge I'd taken on Serafina and Darius hadn't been about cruelty or vindictiveness. It had been about justice and consequences. They had made choices that hurt people, and those choices had natural repercussions. I'd simply ensured that those repercussions occurred in a timely manner. But more importantly, I'd discovered something about myself in the process. I was capable of being ruthless when necessary, but I was also capable of forgiveness and moving forward. I could exact justice without losing my humanity. As I drove home through the Portland evening, past the restaurants where Serafina had cheated on me and the hotel where she'd met her lover, I felt nothing but peace. The chapter of my life that included her was closed, and a new one was beginning. My phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. "Thank you for helping me at the gym tonight. I'm looking forward to that coffee emoji." I smiled and typed back, "Me too. How about Thursday afternoon?" "Perfect," came her quick reply. I pulled into my driveway and sat in the car for a moment, looking at my house, the house that was now truly mine, free from the memories of betrayal and deception. Tomorrow I would call a decorator and have it redecorated completely. New furniture, new colors, new everything. It was time for a fresh start in every aspect of my life. As I walked to my front door, I thought about the scholarship fund I was going to establish. Maybe Serafina would never apply for it, but maybe someone like her would benefit from it. Someone who had made terrible mistakes but was genuinely trying to change. Everyone deserved a second chance, even if it couldn't come from the people they'd hurt. Inside, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my deck, looking out at the city lights. In 3 months, I'd gone from broken and betrayed to whole and hopeful. I'd learned that the best revenge isn't destruction, it's building a better life without the people who didn't appreciate the one you offered them. My phone rang, and for a split second, I tensed, thinking it might be Serafina again. But the caller ID showed Matthias's name. "How did the workout go?" he asked without preamble. "Good," I said, smiling. "Really good. I think I'm ready for that fresh start we talked about." "About time," he said, and I could hear the relief in his voice. "You deserve to be happy, Kieran. Really happy." "I know," I said, and for the first time in months, I truly believed it. I finally know. The following Thursday, I met Celeste at a small independent coffee shop called The Grind on Hawthorne Boulevard. She was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with a book in her hands, something about pediatric psychology. She looked up when I approached, and her face lit up with a genuine smile that made my heart skip a beat. "I hope you don't mind," she said, closing the book, "but I got here early. I was nervous and needed something to do with my hands." Her honesty was refreshing. In my experience with Serafina, everything had been calculated, performed. This woman's vulnerability felt like a gift. "I don't mind at all," I said, settling into the chair across from her. "What are you reading?" "Research for work," she explained, turning the book so I could see the cover. "I'm working with a little girl who's been through some trauma, and I'm trying to understand better ways to help her communicate. Sometimes the regular approaches don't work." As she talked about her work, her eyes became animated, her hands gesturing expressively. She told me about 8-year-old patients who had been through foster care, about teaching them to trust again, about the small victories that made her job worthwhile. Her passion was infectious, and I found myself leaning forward, genuinely fascinated. "I'm sorry," she said suddenly, stopping mid-sentence. "I'm rambling about work. Tell me about you. What do you do?" I explained my consulting business, how Matthias and I had started it 5 years ago after working for a large firm that treated employees like expendable resources. "We wanted to create something different," I said. "A place where people could do good work without sacrificing their humanity." "That sounds wonderful," she said. "What kind of consulting?" "Business strategy, mostly. We help companies restructure when they're struggling, or expand when they're ready to grow. Last month we worked with a family-owned restaurant chain that was about to lose everything. Now they're opening 3 new locations." "You save businesses," she said thoughtfully. "I try to save kids. We're both in the rescue business, I guess." I laughed, struck by the parallel I'd never considered. "I suppose we are." Our conversation flowed effortlessly from topic to topic. She told me about growing up in a small town in Montana, about her decision to become a nurse after her younger brother was born with a heart condition. I found myself sharing stories I hadn't told anyone in years, about my parents' divorce when I was 12, about how it had made me determined to build something stable and lasting. "Is that why you got engaged?" she asked gently, then immediately looked mortified. "I'm sorry, that's too personal." "I don't know why It's okay," I said, surprising myself. "Actually, yes. I think that was part of it. I wanted to prove to myself that I could make a relationship work, that I could be the kind of man who doesn't walk away when things get difficult." What happened? She asked softly. I could have given her a sanitized version, but something about her openness made me want to be equally honest. She was having an affair. For almost a year. I found out by accident and ended things immediately. I'm so sorry, Celeste said, and I could see genuine pain in her eyes. That must have been devastating. It was, I admitted. But I learned something important about myself in the process. I learned that I'm stronger than I thought, and that I won't compromise my self-respect for anyone, no matter how much I love them. She nodded thoughtfully. I went through something similar a few years ago. Not an affair, but a long-term relationship where I kept making excuses for behavior that was slowly destroying my confidence. It took me 2 years to realize that love shouldn't require you to become smaller. Exactly, I said, feeling a connection I hadn't expected. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. We talked for 3 hours. When I finally looked at my watch, I was shocked to see how much time had passed. I should let you go, I said reluctantly. I don't have anywhere to be, she said, then blushed. I mean, if you want to keep talking, I'd like that. We ended up walking through Laurelhurst Park, talking about books and travel and dreams for the future. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, we found ourselves sitting on a bench overlooking the pond. Can I ask you something? Celeste said, turning to face me. Of course. Are you ready for this? Dating, I mean. Sometimes people think they're ready before they actually are, and I don't want to be someone's rebound or their way of proving they've moved on. Her directness caught me off guard, but I appreciated it. That's a fair question, I said. 3 months ago, I would have said yes, but I would have been lying to both of us. Now? I think I am. I've done the work to understand what went wrong, and I've had time to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to save someone else's relationship. Good answer, she said with a smile. Because I really like you, Kieran Ashworth, and I'd hate to have to walk away from this before it even starts. 2 weeks later, I was in my office when Penelope buzzed me again. There's an Augustus Pemberton here to see you. He says you'll know what it's about. I hadn't heard from my private investigator since he delivered his report on Serafina's affair. Curious, I told Penelope to send him in. Augustus was a big man with graying hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. He settled into the chair across from my desk with a manila folder in his hands. I hope you don't mind me coming by unannounced, he said, but I thought you'd want to know about some developments in your case. What kind of developments? Well, remember how I told you that Serafina Caldwell and Darius Montenegro were having an affair? Turns out that wasn't the whole story. He opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. I've been doing some follow-up work, and I discovered that Mr. Montenegro has quite the pattern of behavior. The photos showed Darius with at least 4 different women over the past 2 years, all of them clearly romantic in nature. He's a serial cheater, Augustus explained. I talked to his ex-girlfriend, the one who supposedly left him last month. Turns out he was cheating on her too, with multiple women, including your ex-fiancé. I studied the photos, feeling a mixture of vindication and pity. Why are you telling me this? Because one of these women is Tabitha Winterbourne, the wife of Judge Harold Winterbourne. She's filed for divorce and is seeking a substantial settlement. Her lawyer contacted me because they heard about my work on your case, and they wanted to know if I had any additional information about Montenegro's pattern of behavior. Judge Winterbourne was one of the most respected family court judges in the state. If Darius had been having an affair with his wife, the repercussions would be enormous. There's more, Augustus continued. I also discovered that Montenegro has been engaged 3 times in the past 5 years. Each engagement ended when the women discovered his affairs. Your ex-fiancée wasn't his first victim, and she probably won't be his last. I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. What does this mean for Serafina? That's up to you, Augustus said. But I thought you should know that she wasn't special to him. She was just another conquest, another way for him to prove his power over committed relationships. If you wanted to share this information with her, it might help her understand what she really threw away her relationship for. After Augustus left, I sat in my office staring at the photos and reports. Part of me felt vindicated. This wasn't about Serafina finding someone better than me. This was about her being manipulated by a predator who specialized in destroying relationships. But another part of me felt genuinely sad for her. She had destroyed the best thing in her life for someone who never cared about her at all. That evening, I was having dinner with Celeste at her apartment when I told her about Augustus's visit. She listened thoughtfully, occasionally asking clarifying questions. What are you going to do with this information? She asked when I finished. I don't know, I admitted. Part of me thinks she deserves to know the truth about what she got involved with. But another part of me thinks it's not my problem anymore. Celeste was quiet for a moment, twirling pasta around her fork. Can I tell you what I think? Please. I think you should tell her, she said. Not because you owe her anything, but because it might help her avoid making the same mistake again. From what you've told me about your conversation in your office, it sounds like she's genuinely trying to change. This information might be part of that process. You're not worried about me getting dragged back into her drama? Celeste smiled. I'm not worried because I trust you. And because I can see that you've already moved on. You're telling me about this as a closed chapter, not as an open wound. The next day, I called Cordelia and asked her to reach out to Serafina's lawyer with a request for a meeting. I wanted everything to be formal and documented. 3 days later, I was sitting in Cordelia's conference room when Serafina arrived with her attorney, a young woman named Prudence Blackwood. Serafina looked better than she had during her visit to my office. She'd gained back some weight and was wearing professional attire, but she still seemed fragile. Thank you for agreeing to this meeting, I said formally. I have some information I thought you should know about Darius Montenegro. I laid out everything Augustus had discovered, the pattern of affairs, the multiple engagements, the other women he'd victimized. Serafina's face grew paler with each revelation. Judge Winterbourne's wife? She whispered. He was seeing her at the same time he was seeing me? Among others, I confirmed. You weren't his only side relationship, Serafina. You were one of several women he was using to destroy committed relationships. She was quiet for a long time, staring at the photos spread across the conference table. Finally, she looked up at me with tears in her eyes. Why are you telling me this? She asked. You could have just let me go on thinking that what we had was real, that I threw away our relationship for something meaningful. Because I think you deserve to understand what really happened, I said. You made terrible choices, but you were also manipulated by someone who specializes in this kind of thing. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it might help you forgive yourself and move forward. I don't know if I'll ever forgive myself, she said quietly. But thank you for this. It helps to know that I wasn't just weak or terrible. I was targeted. After they left, Cordelia looked at me with something approaching pride. That was generous of you, she said. It was necessary, I replied. I needed to close that door completely, and I couldn't do that while she was still suffering under illusions about what she'd lost our relationship for. That weekend, Celeste and I took a weekend trip to the Oregon coast. We rented a small cottage in Cannon Beach and spent 2 days walking along the shore, talking about everything and nothing. On Saturday evening, we were sitting on the beach watching the sunset when she turned to me with a serious expression. I'm falling in love with you, she said simply. I know it's early, and I know you're still processing everything that happened with your ex-fiancé, but I wanted you to know. My heart started racing, but not from fear. From joy. I'm falling in love with you too, I said, reaching for her hand. And I'm not still processing anything. I'm here, completely here, with you. She smiled and leaned against my shoulder. Good, she said. Because I was starting to worry that I was the only one feeling this way. Never, I said, kissing the top of her head. I've never felt anything like this before. What I thought was love before was just me trying to fix someone else. This is different. This is real. As we sat there watching the waves crash against the rocks, I thought about the journey that had brought me to this moment. 6 months ago, I'd been engaged to a woman who betrayed me in the worst possible way. I'd been naive and trusting, willing to overlook red flags because I was afraid of being alone. Now I was with someone who valued honesty above comfort, who challenged me to be better while accepting me exactly as I was. Someone who had her own career and dreams and didn't need me to complete her, but chose to build something beautiful with me anyway. What are you thinking about? Celeste asked, noticing my contemplative mood. About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing, I said. If Serafina hadn't betrayed me, I never would have ended up here with you. Do you really believe that? She asked. I do, I said, and I meant it completely. Everything I went through made me into the man I needed to be to deserve you. 3 months later, I was in my newly redecorated living room when my phone rang. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize, but something made me answer it anyway. Kieran? It's Serafina. Please don't hang up. I almost did hang up, but something in her voice stopped me. What do you need, Serafina? I wanted to thank you, she said. For telling me the truth about Darius. It changed everything for me. How so? I realized that I wasn't as bad a person as I thought I was, she said. I mean, I still did terrible things, and I still hurt you in ways I can never fully make up for. But understanding that I was targeted, that someone studied me and figured out exactly how to manipulate me, it helped me stop hating myself long enough to actually work on getting better. I'm glad, I said, and I meant it. I also wanted you to know that I'm engaged, she said quietly. That caught me by surprise. Congratulations. To whom? His name is Nathaniel Rosenberg. He's a therapist I met in my support group. He knows everything about what I did to you, and he's helping me become the kind of person who would never do that again. That's wonderful, I said, and I was surprised to realize I genuinely meant it. I hope you'll be very happy together. Thank you, she said. I also wanted you to know that the scholarship fund you set up, I know it was you, even though it's anonymous, it helped me finish my therapy program. I'm paying it forward by volunteering with other people who have made the kinds of mistakes I made. I was quiet for a moment, touched that she'd figured out the scholarship was for me. Everyone deserves a second chance, I said finally. Not everyone gets one, she replied. And not everyone would have given me the kind of grace you did. You could have destroyed me completely, but you chose to help me rebuild instead. That says everything about who you are as a person. After we hung up, I sat in my living room thinking about forgiveness and redemption and the strange ways life unfolds. I thought about the man I'd been a year ago, desperate to make a relationship work with someone who didn't appreciate what I was offering. And I thought about the man I was now, confident, whole, and deeply in love with someone who chose me every day. My phone buzzed with a text from Celeste. Dinner at 7? I have something I want to talk to you about. Red heart emoji. I smiled and texted back, can't wait. I love you. I love you too, came her immediate reply. As I got ready for dinner, I reflected on the past year and all the ways it had changed me. The betrayal that had nearly destroyed me had ultimately led me to the greatest happiness I'd ever known. The revenge I'd taken had been about justice and consequences, but it had also been about learning to value myself enough to demand better. I was no longer the man who would accept crumbs of affection from someone who was giving their best to someone else. I was no longer willing to ignore red flags or make excuses for behavior that diminished my worth. I had learned that real love doesn't require you to become smaller, and that the right person will choose you consistently, not just when it's convenient.